Hello everyone, and today we're going to be talking about something that is kind of new and revolutionary to After Effects. For those of you who use After Effects for years like me, and also node-based compositing and wish After Effects could do that, well, there's a plugin called Magic Nodes, and I bought it, so I'm not getting paid for this review at all, so just nice little disclaimer. I've been playing around with it, and there are a few things that have issues with it, but it's definitely not ready for production in my opinion. But it's something that I think this is the first version, and he's coming out with a new 1.4 version or something like that, which might be ready. But right now it's not really ready for production, but definitely get your hands on it, start playing with it, because it's pretty cool. We're going to do a simple monitor comp using Magic Nodes. Now the example he used was an EXR file with a bunch of embedded things into it, which is cool if you're doing a bunch of 3D stuff. But most of my work consists of getting plates from clients, adding stuff to it, manipulating it in some fashion, and then spitting it back out. So I like to do a monitor comp as a simple tutorial because it usually has everything you need for really, really basic compositing. Front, back, matte, tracking, masks, and that's it. So let's get started with a simple monitor comp with Magic Nodes. Okay, so here we are in After Effects. Now, let's go ahead and bring in some footage. Alrighty, so normally what we would do with footage is bring it down here and it sets our comp for us with length and frame rate and all that good stuff for you, frame size. So Magic Node doesn't really do that for you, unfortunately. It does not read this information. Not sure why they didn't do that, but for whatever reason, it doesn't. So once you've installed it, and you've got your Magic Nodes panel working by coming to Windows Extension Magic Node. To get started in a Magic Node comp, select your footage and import it in. And now it creates your comp for you. However, as you can see, it's not the right size, nor is it the right frame range or frame rate for that matter. By default, it's 1920 by 1080, 200 frames at 24 frames per second. And I'm going to show you a little glitch here that you definitely have to watch out for, especially if you're working with video footage or anything that's running 23976, okay? This project happens to be that. So 3840 by 2160. Cool, we're all good. 40 frames duration at 23.976. It shows it in there. It's like, okay, cool, we're good to go. But if you look over here, you are not. You're only at frame 37. It's starting at frame 1, so that'd be 0. So that's actually 38 frames. And you can see there's a little bit of more footage you have here past that. So the reason why is because it's actually running at 23 frames, not 23.976. And due to that calculation, it calculated the 40 frames down to 38. So that has to go back. And while we're in here, I always like to start at frame 1. That's just personal preference. And now we're good to go. So if you're dealing with anything that's not whole frame rates, then make sure you definitely look at this. This is probably most important because you don't want to do an entire comp realizing, hey, I'm completely off. All right, let's take a look at our comp or our footage. Bigger buttons. And if we play through this, you can see there's a little bit of camera move. The monitor's bouncing, and we have hands above it, so it needs to be keyed back. A lot of spill here that needs to be dealt with. Try not to get the spill from the green. So we got to keep this green, but lose this green. So this is actually a really good plate for tutorials because it gives you everything you need for basic comping. Your front, back, matte, track, keying, roto, and all that stuff. So let's start by putting in a grid here, right? So a solid in here, okay, and then throw a grid effect on here. So let's grab another effect. And if you're wondering what this is the effects control panel from Video Copilot. I highly recommend you downloading it. It's so much easier than coming up here or wasting time over here. It's so much easier. I've been using it for years and I can't speak enough about it. It should be standard. So let's go ahead and add a standard grid on here. All right, grid, boom. Okay, let's look at our effect. Okay, there we are. So there's our grid. Let's merge it onto our foreground or our plate. All right, background is over here on the right. Foreground is on the left. I mean on the top. Now here's something frustrating about this. And for those of you who have worked in node-based compositing will agree with this, is there's no defined line for your comp. Meaning in Newt, the background is up here and your foreground and your output is here. So when you're creating a comp, you create a spline, and whatever's at the most bottom, that's the end of your comp. That's the end of what you need to look at. In Fusion, it's horizontal, so the background is here, your output is here. So whatever's on the rightmost node, that's the end of your comp. This works like a 7. All right, I'm not sure why he chose to do it this way, but it's going to make this comp very complex, and it's going to have these like weird S-shaped splines all over the place. Okay, so having said that, that's my beef. Let's move on. Let's change the mode to screen so we can see our footage, our grid. And on this effects, let's go ahead and add a corner pin. Let's do a power pin. I like power pin better. There we go. All right, power pin, corner pin, whatever suits your fancy. This reacts to just like you normally do. All right, so here we are. Now we got to attach this to our null, so it tracks along with it. Okay, so let's go ahead and name this so we know what we have here. Insert grid. All right, let's call this insert effects. Okay. All right. Now by default, or what we normally do, we would take our insert grid and attach it to the null that we created. Oh, we don't have a null here. I thought I had tracked this already. Let's go ahead and track this real quick. Null object and track. Okay, so while I'm setting this up for a track, and you watch, let me tell you something about this node, magic node. It does not recognize translation data or layer manipulation data, meaning for anything like tracking. Whoops, no, not camera tracking. Just need a motion tracker. Things like tracking or moving X, Y, rotation, scaling, opacity, things like that. That's not recognized here in the node control panel. All that still has to be done in the layer control panel here, or the layer panel. For whatever reason, that's just how it is. So that means you will be going back and forth between layer and node, and to know which one's which, it just comes down with doing a lot of this at the same time. It's not as intuitive as I would like, but there you are. That's where we're at. I don't want you to think I'm ragging on this, but it's definitely a step in the right directions. But there's also a lot of things that still need to be dealt with, or at least seen to, or educated before it becomes production. All right, so let's go ahead and save this before something bad happens. There we go. All right, so now let's apply this. So let's set the target to our null and apply. Yes. now our null should be following. And it is. Cool. Alright, so by After Effects normalities, if you will, we would take our insert grid that we have and attach it to our null. And as you'll see, that's not going to work. Probably just. So as you can see, if I scrub through these low few frames, it's not actually moving. And that's because our node-based system here, that data needs to be attached to the last thing going into the merge. In this case, it's the effects node, or the insert effects, which is right here. So if we put this onto our tracking null, monitor track, there we go. All right, so if we put that there, attach it, now we'll see that it is actually moving with the monitor. That took a little bit of trial and error to figure out, but I eventually did, and now I'm telling you so you don't have to beat your head around the bush trying to figure that out. Okay, so now it's tracking. Woohoo. All right, let's go ahead and save. All right, now let's go ahead and do a simple key with an effects node. Oops. 2. We're going to end up needing it anyways. So we'll call this soft mat. Soft mat. And add a key light to it. All right, let's go ahead and look at it. So a little square. And got our alpha. Now, I'm not going to sit here trying to dial in this key. It's just more about learning the nodes and methodology than it is about anything else. Okay, so we also have, all right, this is enough. So we have a lot of spill over here, a lot of stuff that we want to keep green, which is up here. So let's go ahead and do a garbage mat. Again, grab a node. All right, glitch, another glitch. All right, so when I bring in a solid, normally when we bring in a solid, it's white. It also has an alpha, so if I double click this layer and look at its alpha, doesn't exist. So, and this is a glitch. So if you come up to layer, this will fix it. Layer solid, everything is supposed to be white, which is not. Just give that a little nudge and everything works now. Not sure why that glitches out like that, but it just does. So we got ourselves a proper working solid. Let's go ahead and turn this down for a moment and look at our soft mat. Our alpha so we see it. And we'll call this hard mat. There we go. Transform. Our roto. Go. And we're going to need one for our spill. Let's go ahead and duplicate this. There we go. Call it spill mat. All right. I'm going to ahead and add all this stuff down here to the spill. All right, so let's come back here to the hard mat and invert this alpha. Or I could just hit the invert button. Yes, I know. All right. Turn both these back on. All right, so we got our two mats. We got a hard mat and a spill mat. So let's go ahead and combine both of these soft and hard mat with a merge. suppose it doesn't really matter which one's which. Okay, so let's spill mat. I need the hard mat. There we go. So there's our mat. Okay, so before we add that to our, let's take a look and see what it looks like with the soft mat. Background, foreground, and RGB. Okay, so here's what our comp looks like as it stands. We haven't added the fill mat yet. We haven't added the fill mat yet, so we're seeing a lot of this noise here from the key light. We're losing the green in the trees, all this mess here. So our fill mat should fill all that in. But before we do that, let's go ahead and despill everything and use that as our RGB before putting it on. Again, this is frustrating because I'm used to selecting and dragging my nodes so I can move a bunch of nodes at the same time. So unhook that. Okay, and let's grab this effect node. So we'll call this spill suppress. Okay. Saturation, which is that one up there. Greens. Spread out the sample. There we go. So it desaturated everything, which we do not want. We only want to keep this area here. So let's go ahead and hit a set mat to that. And select our spill mat. Both effects and matte. Alright, so this is the only thing that's getting despilled, and then we'll create another merge with our background and our foreground, and put that on top. So now we got this back, and then we're just spilling this by putting that over. Alright, so now add another effects to attach. Set map. Alright, we're going to go with this merge here, which we'll call soft mat, soft and hard. Soft and hard mat. Take a look at this, see what we got. Holes cut out, and then move this on top. And there we go. So there is our comp. There you have it. Nodes in After Effects doing a simple monitor comp. Is it overkill? Yes, very much so. For something like this. But for something more complicated, it could definitely become handy. I found that to be true on many nuke comps and fusion comps, especially to be able to reuse assets without having to pre-comp. So this would definitely come in extremely handy and most valuable in those situations. For something so simple as a monitor comp, I could have done this monitor comp in maybe 5 layers, if or less. But this, again, this is more about learning the ins and outs of how to use the nodes. My biggest issue with this is, one, it does crash a lot. I wouldn't recommend throwing this into production yet. Another thing is, it's not really intuitive about when to use the layers versus when to use the nodes. So once that gets resolved, it'd be much easier if there was a mask node, a transform node, what else? How to combine mats easier. That would be also a nice little tutorial. I just did it with a simple merge. So there's a lot of things that still need to be addressed and how to apply them uh, to the project. But it's a great start. Don't get me wrong. This is a great app. It's a great start. I really wish Adobe would implement this as a standard, but again, I don't know if they will or even care. I've chatted with them over the decades, and they've been like, no, we're sticking with layer base. Your schematic view should be fine enough for what you need. It's like, no, we want it actually usable. This guy made it usable. Okay, this is what we wanted, and he delivered. But he needs to make it better, make it production ready, and yeah. So for EXRs, I'm sure they work great. For actual footage and doing manipulations of that, it still needs a little bit of work, but I'm sure he'll get there with it. Enough people buying it and testing it, I'm pretty sure he'll get there. So that's it for now. If you have any questions, I'm actually thinking about opening a Discord channel with VFX that we can chat about this or any other VFX. Let me know if that interests any of you out there. But yeah, I'll be working more with magic nodes on my private stuff, on my personal stuff, and then eventually maybe throw it in production. We'll see. So I'll see you next time. Message me, comment me at the bottom if you have any questions or comments about this. And if you are the developer and you're watching this, I've reached out to you a few times, and I know we've been emailing. I would love to just, sit down with you and maybe pick your brain on, hey, best way about going about doing this to help both compositors, artists, and people who know Node and After Effects get that transition going and make things a lot easier to deal with. So see you next time, and have a good day.